Thank you. Okay, I have my clicker. We fight over the clicker at home, and I get to have this clicker for the next 18-ish minutes. So I'm lucky. There we go. Okay. This talk is about one word. A word so very personal that its only definition is what it entails to me. The only way I could describe this word is by sharing my story. Jihad is the word, and this is my jihad. My jihad is raising my children to think for themselves and to question what they hear. What's yours? My jihad is speaking the truth, even if it makes people feel uncomfortable. What's yours? My jihad, like so many other mothers, is to raise my children to be good citizens, but also to have a healthy self-image so that they may self-actualize to their greatest potential, whatever that may be. What's yours? I am privileged to be taking part in an amazing public education campaign called MyJihad, taking back Islam from Muslim extremists and anti-Muslim extremists alike. Jihad is an Arabic term that means struggle. It means striving in the way of God. Jihad means if you're given the choice between the right thing to do and the difficult choice, having the courage and the faith and the discipline to make the right choice. For Muslims like myself, for the past 1,400 years, jihad has meant the inner struggle to get to a better place, to be a better person today than I was yesterday. And it can take the form of a physical struggle. But there is a moral code of conduct, meaning it's only in self-defense. The same type of values we hold true in our own US Constitution. So there is one thing for certain: Muslim extremists and anti-Muslim extremists have seen eye to eye on this topic. They've decided that jihad means holy war and that it's aggressive in nature. And it's not true. And when I said that my jihad was to speak truth and to teach my children to think for themselves, some of you might have thought that that sounds cliche, and it kind of does, but it really is my jihad. This is a picture of my late father, Mehmet Kishanov, from his passport back in 1958 when he came to the United States. My father was a Pomak, which means he was a Bulgarian Muslim, and back then only 13% of Bulgarians were Muslim, so he was a minority in a strict, totalitarian, communist country, stricter even than the Soviet Union. Now, my father was a free thinker, a poet, a musician, and a moderate spiritual Muslim man, and basically was not free to be himself in communist Bulgaria. The short version of his life there is a happy upbringing of a shepherd boy in the southernmost mountains of Bulgaria, bordering Greece, mountains that he loved and longed for till the day he passed away in 1997. An upbringing with 2 parents, 3 sisters, and a wise old grandmother that taught him his Islam. But out in the open, he could not carry a Quran. They changed our family surname to sound more communist. They jailed and beat my grandmother and my great-grandmother for being Muslim. And after my grandfather was killed from stepping on a landmine that was left over from World War II on the border, my father became the man of the family at age 9. But soon after this, they exiled the family to central Bulgaria. They confiscated their land. They confiscated their livestock, and they confiscated their livelihood. So my father would write poetry about life under communism, and he would have to hide it. But he was invited to read his poetry for Radio Free Europe, and he did, and he was always proud of that. And the government didn't like that, though, so they would pay him visits and threaten him, and spies would follow him around. Fast forward to one day on the border in an area called the Dead Zone, which is an area at the border between 2 border fences that had landmines laid out, and it was a shoot-to-kill area for anyone caught there. They were doing repairs, and they had cleared the area of the mines and all of that, and my father was aware of this because he lived nearby, and he thought that this could be an opportunity of a lifetime. So the events that play out that evening are like a movie scene, but I only have 18-ish minutes. So the short version went down something like this. My father and cousin ran across the border. They were shot at by border police, and they made it safely into Greece, where they were detained for a year before being allowed to emigrate to the United States right here in Chicago. My dad was carrying a pouch with 100 photographs and a pocket knife, and that was it. The government, so they defected from Bulgaria. They literally escaped communism. The government went back and told my grandmother that the men were shot at when they escaped, which was true. They told my grandmother that one of the men was injured, which wasn't true. They told my grandmother that one of the men was killed, which wasn't true. They wouldn't allow letters to pass through for 4 years. So my grandmother grieved during this time, as did my father. They wouldn't let him visit for 20 years. So after 20 years, my father, my mother, who is Christian, I grew up in an interfaith home, 2 brothers and myself, we visited Bulgaria. I was 12 years old meeting my grandmother for the first time, and cousins and aunts and uncles. My father was able to visit 2 more times before he passed away from kidney cancer at age 58. So essentially, he gave up his homeland, his beloved mountains, his mother, everything he knew, so that he could speak his truth, so that he could practice his religion freely. That's the sacrifice he gave to my 2 brothers and me. In Islam, we believe that the blessings you receive from the good deeds that you do stop after you die, except for 3 instances. 1, if you leave behind a charity that continues to give back. 2, if you leave behind knowledge, as in books or an educational institution. Or 3, through the good deeds of your righteous children. So my jihad is to honor my father's legacy by speaking my truth and practicing my faith and striving to do righteous deeds. So moving from the past to the present, Islamophobia is a very active $43 million industry whose aim is to use media and publicity to spread hate for Islam and Muslims. Late last year, this was in the news. An anti-Muslim blogger, in the name of free speech, paid to have ads placed in the New York City subway. The ad reads, "In any war between the civilized man and the savage, support the civilized man, support Israel, defeat jihad." So what's the ad supposed to mean? Well, an Islamophobe is calling Muslims savage, and sticks and stones may break my bones. It's name calling. But the last line, defeat jihad. For anyone that understands jihad, what it means, to anyone who practices jihad, like the 1.6 billion Muslims in the world, that line doesn't make sense. So it was these types of misuses of the term jihad, these types of misrepresentations of Islamic terminology that motivated citizen activists like myself, moms, students, really people of all faith, to come out and just speak our truth and just go beyond a headline and show real faces and what jihad means to us. Jihad, as the MyJihad campaign, has created dialogue amongst people of all faiths. But dialogue is different than debate. It's not a debate about what jihad means, but it's dialogue to build bridges, to build an atmosphere that goes, I like to say, beyond coexistence and beyond tolerance. We could simply tolerate each other, or we could celebrate our differences and our similarities, which is something that I did in my household in an interfaith home I was sort of sheltered because when I grew up and realized that not everyone thinks like that, it actually was kind of shocking to me. So this campaign is not rebranding jihad or redefining it, it's reclaiming it for what it means and what it's always meant. Early on in the campaign founder, Ahmed Rehab, who is the executive director of CAIR-Chicago, which is the Council of American Islamic Relations, initially put the idea out there to people to see how they would respond. And these are some of the examples of the early responses that were received. This is a Christian woman sent in her picture. My jihad is to create bridges between Christians and Muslims that encourage coexistence. What's yours? It's hard to read this one. Our jihad is, I'll have to turn around, is love, respect, and unity in diversity. What's yours? My jihad is constantly staying connected with my inner peace. What's yours? From Jeremiah, my jihad is to use media as a tool for positive change. What's yours? So this was encouraging. I think people were waiting for something like this and needing to do this, and this encouraged us to go ahead and take this serious and take the next step. Universities picked up the idea, started to do their own mini MyJihad campaigns on campus. We've done some presentations and workshops at universities, hope to do more. This is a picture from Washington University in St. Louis. MyJihad is truly to come to see every human being as part of myself. So we went ahead and did a photo shoot. Award-winning photographer Sadaf Syed, who is author of the book I Cover, donated her services and continues to do so to take professional pictures of real people. Not models, just people willing to share their jihad, many of them reluctant to have their name in an ad or online, but doing it because it's meaningful to them and they feel the importance of this work. So this is a video of the original photo shoot, which you could find on the website, myjihad.org. And some of the first ads that came out that were put on the Chicago buses that we put out there for a month. This is Angie. My jihad is to march on despite losing my son. She could tell her story about her jihad better than I can on the website. She's blogged it. But essentially, she's a suburban mom just like me, with, I tell her, a little more strength than some of us moms, but she's a mom of 4, 3 surviving, 1 angel. Her 2 youngest children were diagnosed with Hunter's syndrome. Her son, who's in the photograph, lost his life before age 5 from complications from that disease, where they're missing an enzyme. Her son holding the photo has the disease today, so he is getting treatments on a regular basis. So bearing your child and dealing with the grief and supporting your family, and then also having another child who's ill, is Angie's jihad, and that's what motivates her to be part of this campaign, and she's one of the most positive, inspirational people I've ever met. I love this bus ad for many reasons, especially because of the interfaith element to it. I can drone on and on about this, but trying to describe it in, briefly. The 2 gentlemen on the left, Gerald, whose Muslim name is Jihad, he also has a blog that talks about that on the website, is a Muslim man. Next to him, his friend, Jewish activist Asaf, who, again, were reluctant to put cool hats on and go on an ad on a bus, but said, we want to do this, we're going to do it. So they did that. And on the right, 2 BFFs, Christian and Muslim, Saleha and Danis, who study at the Catholic Theological Union and do interfaith work. These are real stories about people who are building friendships across the aisle. So after Chicago, we rolled out in San Francisco, which was really exciting, in Washington, D.C., and all the train stations. That was really fun. And the coverage and the response worldwide came quick, and it's been nonstop. It's exciting, it's not surprising. I say it's not surprising because someone in Paducah, Kentucky, or India, or Vancouver can relate to any issues a mom goes through or any kinds of struggles that any of us might go through. So it's just very organic and it's a movement and people are responding to it. But it is pretty cool to see that our story is covered in Washington Post, USA Today, New York Times, Al Jazeera, covering the entire Arab world, and even more. We're in a couple other countries since we put this slide together, so we just can't keep up with it, and it's very exciting. I think it's here to stay. And there's also a feverish Twitter campaign going on. If you actually went on your phone right now onto Twitter and went into the MyJihad hashtag newsfeed, you'd actually see a constant tweeting, negative and positive. I do want to highlight some of the negative. Sorry, I have to get up close. But yeah, this tweeter or tweep, whatever the terminology is you kids use, suggesting drone strikes on Muslim neighbors and mosques. I support free speech, but you can make of that what you want. This person is saying all races and nationalities should unite against Muslim bigotry. Cheryl is saying Muslims should follow Jesus, not Muhammad. If you're watching this, Cheryl, I don't know if you realize that Jesus, peace be upon him, is mentioned in the Quran more times than any other name. Jesus is revered in Islam. And then some of the positive tweets, Rania from Egypt I'm sorry, I can't read in front of me. One who hurts a non-Muslim, he hurts me, and one who hurts me hurts God. My jihad is to love all human beings. One of my favorite tweeps, whose handle is Jihadi Jew, and he puts the most inspiring, go out there and follow him, he's awesome. He's just at the time I took a picture of that, he was retweeted like 30 times and the conversation goes past the, the screen. But he is talking about when being confronted by people who are not behaving like decent human beings, being a decent human being regardless. This woman is a Christian woman who said she wore hijab, which is the headscarf, optional, that Muslim women choose to wear, for 1.5 years, just to see what it would be like. And she is tweeting about acceptance and tolerance. Finally, at the beginning of the campaign, when we were kind of telling the local community and mosques and community leaders about the idea that we were not getting into a debate, but we just wanted to present ourselves and get into the conversation, an imam said something profound that sort of became the mantra for the campaign. He said, put a clean glass of water next to a dirty glass of water and let the people choose for themselves. Thank you.